about the noise, where legends rise. From the clouds to the crowd, this is Crowd, where Africa meets opportunity, where music meets magic.
Hello, everybody. You're welcome to another edition, or what I like to call another episode of the Crowd Virtual Seminar Series. The Crowd Virtual Seminar Series is an initiative of the Crowd Industry Academy. And in the Crowd Virtual Seminar Series, we bring to you music industry professionals who are mainly based in Africa, but who have been able to develop their careers from local to global. My name is Adebiti Adebayo, and it's actually my pleasure to be moderating this. Today, my guest is a music producer who has worked with like a number of good names in the Afrobeat business. His name is Mr. Kayode Bakare. He's going to be sharing his insights on the topic immersive audio and the future of African music. Mr. Kayode Bakare, you're very welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Good day, everyone.
So the first question I'm going to be asking you is around immersive audio. Because immersive audio is very, very important when we talk about, African music. So what does immersive audio even mean?
Okay, immersive audio, first of all, is a step further from the regular or the normal traditional way that we perceive sound. Usually when you talk about mixing, generally in this industry, in the production industry, you hear terminologies like stereo mix, mono mix, and things like that. That's usually the traditional, audio output that every one of us has become accustomed to from time immemorial. But then you talk about immersive audio, that's a step further. Think of it from, let's say, an animation perspective now. You have 2D animation and 3D animation. If stereo sounds are two-dimensional animations, then you describe immersive audio as, or in tandem with 3D animations. So they have extra elements that have been introduced into them that makes them separate from the traditional ones. Usually when in stereo mixes or in stereo outputs, stereo audios, it's just your left and right channel that's engaged, right? But when you're talking about immersive audio, it's not just, it goes beyond the perception of the left and the right. We're talking about the height, we're talking about the breadth and the width of the sound. So that way you introduce new elements that fully immerses the listener into the sound or into the outputs. So it's kind of inviting people into a different dimension of how you can hear music. Just to say in layman's term, immersive audio is when you go outside of the left and right perception of sound. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. The next question I'm going to be asking you, of course, is going to be maybe a leading from the first one as well. So you personally, how did you even learn of immersive audio? How did you learn about it? And how has it affected your journey through music? How has it changed your perception?
I think the first time I personally came into, or the first time I experienced this sort of technology would be in a movie theater, in a cinema. That's definitely the first time that I became curious about it, because it was a new experience for me while me and my friends were watching the movie and we were hearing the sounds, the scores and everything coming from different directions, giving like a different feel and perspective to what we were watching. It was quite interesting. So I did a little bit of research, and then it's been popping around. You probably might have come across this term once or twice, maybe by random or by research. Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos was something I was very, very curious about when I started hearing about it. And Dolby Atmos mastering is actually an implementation of immersive audio mixing. Understand? So, because it's interesting when you can define exactly where you want a certain sound to be heard from, where to come from, whether you want the kick and snare to be hitting dead center, and perhaps the percussions are coming from the upright corner of the room, or the right corner of the room, and all that. So it was very interesting for me, and the way it's impacted my journey into engineering, so to speak. I would say it's positive, because the curiosity did lead me down a rabbit hole of several things that I at the time did not know. It led me down a rabbit hole of several things. So I think I took a new dimension into the world of mastering audio and all that. because innovation is something that drives the birth of certain technologies, especially across industries like music and film and cinema and all that.
Okay.
So them introducing things like this would always drive the birth of new ways to be creative. You understand? Creative approach to the way you would mix something. Creative approach to the way you would make a particular track. And for me, it was just a thing that I had to, I just had to be a part of it. I had to definitely be a part of it, and it has its challenges. I'm not going to lie. It has its very very strong challenges. One of it being the financial aspect of it. Not going to lie, because the incentives that it requires is not little. But the way I see it, if we can fully implement this into the Afrobeats industry on a global scale, it's definitely going to take what we have now a step further beyond where we are. And it's like you said, it's not even a secret anymore. It's out there. It's clear and as bright as day that the Afrobeats industry is on a very global scale now, and it's pretty much taking over everywhere. It's integrating into other cultures, and it's doing this beautiful thing where people are discovering this gem, you know even though we've had it for a long time. And if when you bring the elements of immersive audio into it, it's going to unlock ways that we can allow them to understand our own genre of music, our own culture that we impart into some of those music, the sounds and everything. So it's been an interesting journey so far, to be honest.
Well, thank you very much for that again. So the next
Yeah.
question I'm going to be asking you now is, it's actually something you mentioned in the question you just answered, which is around
Right.
there are so many challenges. It's not cheap. So are there any other challenges that you think African music producers or African perhaps music engineers are having with bringing their craft?
I would say outside of the finance, the challenge that finance would pose, because it would require great incentives, like I said, to actually have the tech for you to be able to experience this, learn with it, and implement it as a producer or an engineer. You also the learning aspect of it too can proves its own challenge, because it is not the tradition. It is not. It doesn't require the traditional approach as to when you are mixing or you are mastering in stereo. You understand? Because um, like I said, you're introducing new elements or new approaches to mixing it, other than just your standard left and right channel. Yeah. So you are considering the width of this of the audio, you're considering the breadth, you're considering the height. So another challenge would be the creative way that you can make use of these tools. Because as interesting as it sounds, if you don't know exactly what you are doing with the tool on ground or with the tools at hand, you are not really going to be able to make anything tangible. It's all going to be jargons at the end of the day if you are very much confused. Like anyone listening would understand that you don't know that you don't have a handle on this. So the approach to it as well, is going to be a challenge, as I was trying to mention. So I mentioned the finance, I mentioned the creative approach to it as well being a challenge, and the accessibility to it also is quite challenging. It's not easily accessible. I think even just I only know of maybe one or two studios here in Nigeria that have Dolby Atmos setups that allows you to use the immersive audio technology where you can shape sound in any way that you want.
Again, thank you very much. So I'll go on to the next question now, and that's around Afrobeats as a genre and African music in general. Do you think we have an advantage when it comes to using? Does our music sort of gives us an advantage when it comes to using immersive audio that perhaps other genres they don't create that kind of sound? Do you get that question I'm trying to ask?
I think I understand. Yes. I think to an extent, yes. In immersive audio, like we've explained from the beginning, is just like the word trying to create immersion, trying to create an immersion of bringing the listener right into that world of whatever sound it is that you have created, right? And implementing that into a tool as a tool into the African music generally, because first of all, Afrobeat is very, very much rich with cultural sounds, different from regular mainstream things. This every sound that is used in Afrobeat itself could tell a story. To be honest, because it's very rich in history and it's very rich in culture. And when you're talking about immersion, I think it's a great tool that can bring the listener to follow you exactly on that journey, on that story, that they can understand exactly the sound selection, so to speak. They can understand the sound selection. They can understand what this particular taste is offering. That's in the sound, and I think like down and the future of Afrobeats definitely is going to be bigger than what it is right now because it's growing on a global scale, like we've mentioned. It's definitely growing. It's getting bigger. It's getting larger every day, and being able to implement a tool like Dolby Atmos for a Dolby Atmos mix or a Dolby Atmos mastering, you first of all, because of the advantages that it has, you can introduce as much and as many elements that you want in a mix when you're making it in Dolby Atmos or when you're mastering in Dolby Atmos. You can introduce as many elements that you want to be able to translate the sound or the emotion or the kind of story that you're going for. So that brings a word of immersion into it itself, and it is definitely, like I said, this is a sound rich genre. This is a very very sound rich genre. So every element that you use can be heightened or can be boosted. Understand? I don't know if this is making any sense, but can be very much enhanced. Yeah, that's the word. Can be enhanced by these immersive mixes, by these immersive sounds, or the approach of immersive mixing to it. So yeah, I definitely think it can be a very useful tool to help the growth of the sound. If you as an engineer understand how to mix in 7D audio or whatever other explanations or 5D audio as well, which is also a massive mixing, definitely you can use these tools to greatly enhance these elements that are telling the story, that are representing these sounds for the listener to follow along.
Thank you very much. Very great ideas around the notion of immersive audio
Yeah.
and whatnot. So the next question now we've talked about challenges, regardless of challenges they are facing around the whole immersive audio thing. What do you think they should be doing to enhance their skills or enhance their learning in using immersive audio so that they can still continue to measure up?
Obviously, to go back to the common regular saying that practice makes perfect. So definitely do as much research as you can into immersive audio. Do as much research into Dolby Atmos mixing. Do as much research into everything that it covers. Understand the core of the technology. Understand the core of what it is exactly before you begin to implement. Because I would say this now. I'll say this generally now because to be very honest, the industry itself, the music industry, filled with producers and engineers, is becoming quite oversaturated to a point because we see the global effect that the genre has, or African music has in general. And because of this, a lot of people want to tap into that, they want to tap into that current, they want to tap into the industry, they also want to bring their own ideas to life and everything. So you have this issue with a lot of people just going into it just gung ho, just head first, straight into it without understanding exactly what they're dealing with in the first place. So I think the base level is the understanding of it. That's where it starts. Know exactly what it is that you're dealing with, and then begin to implement. And then do not let, I think also you should not let anything come in the way of limiting you in terms of ideas. Everything that you try, whether it is something that will turn out to be successful or not, everything that you try is a stepping stone for something that's even greater to come. So implement all these ideas and everything, like lay them down as you are learning and researching about it. But by the time you begin to practice it, lay them down, let all your ideas run free, let your imagination run wild, and you would see the great results that it would bring to you along the line. And so for some of the challenges that I stated earlier, some of them, easier to overcome than others, but there are things that you definitely face in terms of like the finance, in terms of the skill that it requires, in terms of learning, in terms of mentorship, because it's not a lot of people out there that actually practice or use this audio format in the general day-to-day lives of everyone that listens to sounds. It's either out of a mono units or a stereo units. You know, in their cars, they're listening to it. People listening to it in the club are not really privileged to really feel this immersive, to have this immersive experience. But the practice of it thereof can actually allow you, or permit you to venture into new angles, venture into new, new lights, new thoughts, new levels of imagination as to how you can bring these sounds to life. So I would say practice a lot, research a lot, and there's no rush, there's no pressure. Just take your time to understand it, and a world of endless possibilities will be opened. Yeah.
So thank you very much again for that insight. So I just want to just ask a question briefly. So we talked about a lot of things, but now let's talk about community. So how important is community in using immersive audio, or people who want to really get into it? How important is community for them?
Very important, because being around like-minded people can definitely encourage you to go as far as possible into researching or learning about immersive audio. Having people that also have the same drive or same interest with you in one place and learning about the same thing can definitely push you to find that thing that you're looking for, to understand it even further. And to take the step further, when you have people who also have a level of experience in it, in one place or in one platform, to be able to guide you along your own steps, along your own baby steps of learning, and all that can help, certainly. It's because number one, it can shave off years of having to try and do this on your own, having to be an island, of starting everything from scratch, trying to understand it and being confused. Because one thing about researching and trying to learn something new is you will always be left with questions. And even when those questions are answered, some of those answers will still lead to further questions that you would have to take time and certain great number of time to understand or to find the answer to. But having a community of people who have a certain experience, who also have that zeal that you have to learn, can encourage and push that drive further. And in terms of infrastructure, like you said, definitely when you have people who are very much interested to the point where they want to implement this on an infrastructural level, so they can have, say, a Dolby Atmos setup where you can experience immersive audio for the very first time and understand what it is that you are dealing with, can help as well. And it's not that I'm not saying that as if it's a certainty that you would come across somebody who would just open the door to their studio and be like, okay, this is how it goes and this is how it's everything. But first of all, you have already knocked down the challenge of mentorship, where you can have access to people that you can ask questions, people that you can actually study with, or let them know what it is that you know so far, and then they can improve upon what you have. So I think community generally as a tool for anything that you are doing is very, very important. It's very, very important.
Thank you very much. Again, Mr. Kayode Bakare, it's been a very great session with you. So it's just going to be for your final question now. So when we are now talking about change in the African music industry, so you are potentially looking at a population of 750 million to 1 billion people listening to one or maybe just a few particular genres of music spread across a given continent. So which means, it's going to be a massive time. It's going to be a very big future. So what are your own thoughts and perhaps maybe a bit of advice for maybe young music producers who want to position themselves to be part of that future that we are talking about?
So I look at this from a very personal perspective, from a very, very personal point of view. I have had the privilege to work with people internationally, other producers, not just artists, other producers. And a lot of the time, the reaction I get when they hear certain projects that I'm working on or certain things that I've made, then I use the tag Afrobeats or Afrofusion or Amapiano and all this and all that, is, they're very much surprised. For some of them, it's the first time they're introduced to that kind of sound. For others, it's like, okay, there are similarities in the elements here that we have in our own native music or culture, sound culture over there. And one thing I would say is, because of the richness that our African music has, we have a slew of ways that we can explore new words of sounds, without having to, say, go outside of what our culture really represents. if that makes any sense. For instance, I was working with I think a house DJ on a particular track when he was telling me that he was going for something like this. You know, he wanted like it to be a tropical kind of vibe. The producers would understand because these are like genres of music and all that. You know, he was going for like a tropical house kind of feel and everything. And when he was talking when we got to the stage of sound selection, the kind of sounds that we wanted to introduce to bring that track to life. So he was, you know, bringing certain sounds from his side, some synthesizers, some this and that. And then I experimented by using local traditional drums, you know, traditional drums like the yalu, omole, bata, and all that. I experimented by using those sounds to replace some of the percussions that he already had in the track. And I can tell you this, it maintained that very, very African rich vibe, but merged with the tropical house genre that it was going for. It's clear that we are seeing the uptrend of listeners these days sticking to the vibe of the Afrobeat sounds, Afrofusion, dancehall, or whatever, anything that is Afrocentric. We were definitely seeing that around. So I would say this: tap into that, yeah, but don't limit it to just our borders. Don't limit it to just this. Don't limit it to just this continent as a whole or this side of the world. If you can introduce elements from right outside our doorstep or our neighbors into what we already have and create something new and better, that way we're not just preserving what we already have, but we're taking it a step further and evolving the sound. Evolution is something that is very key in the industry of music because, like a very wise person told me, if you cannot stay fresh, if you cannot stay very, very fresh in this kind of industry, then you fade away easily. That's why sounds of the old days are now, the OG sounds. When you were mentioning these artists, you're talking about Nas, you talk about Tupac, Biggie, and the rest of them. Definitely, they are legends in their own rights. But you think about the way the music sounds then and how music is perceived now. It's not exactly going to be easily integrated into today's world. You think of Mood 9 when we're talking about our own artists now, Two Shots, the likes of West. I was about to say Westland. I'm so sorry. Our own boy bands. I've now forgotten the name. That's unfortunate. Several artists like that from days of old, and then think of how their sounds would be perceived now in our own in the modern times today. You can see that there was an evolutionary trend in the way music was then and the way music is now, and that's going to continue to happen. And that's how we preserve and evolve this genre of music. That's exactly how I personally see African sound to be in the future. It's going to be a driving force. It's going to be a definitely driving force because I see African music at the forefront of other genres in, let's say, in less than a decade. If I'm being very gutsy. So my advice to young producers starting up, tap into these sounds. Always do not be scared to, like I said, introduce new elements and try as much as possible to let your imagination run wild. As much as you definitely want to stick or preserve the Afro sounds, you can definitely borrow few sounds from all across the globe and merge it with what we have, and you would see something amazing. You would have something incredibly beautiful.
What a way to go! Very, very insightful and very, very. I don't know how to. It's mind blowing, especially the part we're talking about putting, native drums and native sounds on a tropical spot and it's just blending in like that. So Thank you very much again, Mr. Kayode Bakare. It's been a very, very great time with you. We really appreciated the insights you'll be able to bring to this conversation. They've been powerful, they've been punchy, and I'm sure that our community of music professionals would thank you, even if they can't actually thank you physically. Yeah. So thank you very much. Do have a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend as well. So, I appreciate it.
God bless. Thank you.
So, there you have it. Kayode Bakare, music producer, international and global music producer, sharing his insights on the future of African music, how immersive sound has come to change everything, and how with immersive sound, Africa, regardless of its challenges, can come and take its place on the pedestal of the music industry where it deserves to be, with its culture, with its richness. African sound is ready for that immersion, to be listening in 5D, in 7D, and all the dimensions that human sounds can be listening to. And that is what we're trying to build at Ckrowd. At Ckrowd, we are building a platform for verified music industry professionals to be linked with talent abroad. So when you go on Ckrowd and you create your own profile, You are setting yourself to be noticed by international and global platforms where you can build your own sound and where you can learn to work with talent from, from all around the world, from across the globe. That's what we're trying to build at Crowd. So get on Crowd today, start your journey. Our website is www.crowd.com. Get on there, create your profile, build your profile, share your work and your projects, and position yourself to get verified, and you can have access to that network of music companies and music organizations who are ready to give your talent the possibility it deserves and allow you to monetize and allow you to actually put your talent to useful use. You can also follow us on social media, Ckrowd Africa, on IG, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on X. We're always there and you always get updates of what we're up to. So that's that about that. Thank you very much for another edition of the Ckrowd Virtual Seminar Series. Once again, my name is Adebayo Adebite. I've been the host and the moderator for today's session. And until I come your way, we're going to another episode of the Ckrowd Industry Virtual Seminar Series. I say keep learning, keep getting better, keep building yourself, keep positioning yourself, and more importantly, get on Ckrowd so that your talent and your skill can get the linkages and the possibility that it deserves. Do have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.